a word that evokes images of battlefields and soldiers. But what about the unseen victims, those who bear the weight of conflict long after the guns fall silent? Children, the most vulnerable among us, often suffer in silence. The echoes of conflict reverberate through time. Years after the bombs stop falling, the psychological scars remain. Children, once filled with boundless energy and hope, carry the weight of war within them. Their laughter may return, but the memories linger, shaping their lives in profound ways. They need counseling, support, and a chance to heal. We must invest in their futures, provide them with the tools they need to overcome adversity. By understanding the profound and lasting impact of war on children, we can begin to break the cycle of violence. A child's body, so small, so fragile, is ill-equipped to withstand the brutal force of a bomb blast. The shockwave, a wall of invisible energy, rips through delicate tissues, shattering bones and collapsing lungs. Doctors and nurses on the front lines of this man-made disaster work tirelessly to mend the broken bodies. Each surgery, a desperate attempt to salvage what remains, to restore some semblance of normalcy to a life forever altered. Beyond the immediate physical trauma lies a hidden world of pain. The shrapnel, those tiny fragments of metal propelled with deadly velocity, embed themselves deep within a child's body. Lead poisoning, silent and insidious, seeps into the bloodstreams of those who survive explosions in urban areas. The dust, a toxic cocktail of heavy metals, contaminates everything it touches, poisoning the air they breathe, the water they drink, the very ground they play on. Each breath, a reminder of the firestorm that swept through their young lives. The unseen wounds, the ones that run deeper than any scalpel can reach, are often the hardest to heal. The psychological trauma of war, the fear, the anxiety, the nightmares can linger for years, decades, even a lifetime. Children, their innocence stolen, struggle to make sense of a world turned upside down. Post-traumatic stress disorder, once considered an affliction of soldiers, is now recognized as a common and debilitating consequence of war for children. Even those who escape physical injury bear the weight of invisible wounds. The world, once a place of wonder and possibility, becomes a source of fear and anxiety. Imagine a child's laughter, once a symphony of pure joy, now replaced by a haunted silence. This is the reality for countless children living in the shadow of war. Their young minds, ill-equipped to process the horrors they witness, retreat inward, seeking refuge in a world of silence. The psychological scars of war run deep, often manifesting in ways that are hidden from view. Children may become withdrawn, isolating themselves from friends and family. They may struggle to concentrate in school, their thoughts consumed by intrusive memories and fears. Nightmares become a constant companion, replaying the horrors of war in vivid detail. The world sees their silence, but do they hear their screams? Memory, a double-edged sword, can be both a blessing and a curse. For children who have witnessed the horrors of war, memories become unwelcome intruders, haunting their waking hours and invading their dreams. The weight of these memories can be unbearable, a heavy burden they carry with them every day. They may try to suppress the memories, to push them down deep inside, but the trauma finds ways to seep through the cracks. The past, though gone, continues to exert its grip on the present, casting a long shadow over their young lives. Childhood, a time of wonder, exploration, and boundless potential, is ruthlessly stolen from children living in war zones. Their education disrupted, their families torn apart, their sense of security shattered. They face a future fraught with uncertainty and challenges. The trauma of war can have a profound impact on a child's development, affecting their physical, emotional, and cognitive growth. They may struggle to form healthy attachments, to trust others, to believe in a future free from violence. Education, a pathway to a brighter future, may be interrupted or abandoned altogether. By providing them with the support they need to heal, to learn and to thrive, we are investing in a more peaceful and prosperous future for all. A child's world is their cradle, a tapestry woven from familiar sights, sounds, and smells. But war, a cruel intruder, tears at the very fabric of this world, leaving behind a landscape of loss and displacement. Homes, once sanctuaries filled with laughter and love, reduced to rubble and dust, stark reminders of the shattered lives within. Schools, those hallowed halls of learning and laughter, now stand empty, their windows shattered, their playgrounds silent. Education, the key to a brighter future, lies buried beneath the debris of conflict, robbing children of their right to learn, to grow, and to reach their full potential. Hospitals, beacons of hope and healing, struggle to cope with the influx of injured and traumatized children. The crumbling cradle of childhood, a microcosm of the wider destruction wrought by war, represents a profound loss of innocence, security, and opportunity. If walls could speak, what tales of terror and resilience they would tell. The remnants of bombed-out buildings, scarred and shattered, stand as mute witnesses to the indiscriminate violence unleashed upon innocent lives. Each crack in the concrete, each twisted piece of metal, whispers a silent story of fear, loss, and displacement. Look closer, and you'll see the remnants of everyday life, frozen in time by the sudden eruption of violence. A child's toy peeking out from beneath a pile of rubble. A family portrait singed but still clinging to a shattered wall. A school book lying open, its pages fluttering in the wind. These fragments of normalcy, now out of place amidst the destruction, serve as poignant reminders of the lives torn apart by conflict. The impact of war on infrastructure extends far beyond the immediate destruction of buildings and homes. Water systems, essential for life, lie shattered, denying communities access to clean water and sanitation. Sewage systems overflow, spreading disease and adding to the already unbearable burden of suffering. The basic necessities of life, taken for granted in times of peace, become luxuries in the aftermath of conflict. The destruction of roads and bridges isolates communities, cutting off access to essential goods and services. Food becomes scarce, medical supplies dwindle, and the fragile lifeline of humanitarian aid struggles to reach those in desperate need. The breakdown of infrastructure, a ripple effect of conflict, exacerbates the humanitarian crisis, leaving communities vulnerable and struggling to survive. Children, deprived of their basic needs, face a future where their potential is limited, their dreams deferred, their lives forever altered by the echoes of conflict. In the shadows of conflict, a different kind of battle unfolds, one fought not with guns and bombs, but with balance sheets and profit margins. Here, far from the front lines, are the true beneficiaries of war, the merchants of death, who peddle weapons of destruction with cold indifference to the human cost. For them, war is not a tragedy, but an opportunity, a chance to amass vast fortunes on the back of human suffering. These arms manufacturers, often multinational corporations with tentacles reaching across the globe, operate in a world where profit trumps morality. War for them is not a failure of diplomacy, but a business opportunity, a chance to capitalize on chaos and instability. Only by exposing these merchants of death, by holding them accountable for their actions, can we hope to break the cycle of violence and build a world where peace is not a dream, but a lasting reality. Section 2. The price of power. The corridors of power, often far removed from the battlefields where young lives are lost and futures shattered, resonate with the ambitions of those who seek to shape the world in their own image. For some, War is not an instrument of last resort, but a tool to be wielded in the pursuit of geopolitical dominance, territorial expansion, or ideological supremacy. The human cost, the suffering inflicted upon innocent civilians, is a mere footnote in their calculations, a necessary evil in the pursuit of a greater good, as they define it. These architects of war, often driven by a potent mix of nationalism, ideology, and a thirst for power, justify their actions with lofty rhetoric, invoking patriotism, national security, or the defense of freedom. They paint their enemies in broad strokes, demonizing entire populations and silencing dissenting voices within their own ranks. The result is a climate of fear and suspicion, where dialogue is replaced by threats and diplomacy is sacrificed on the altar of military might. The price of this pursuit of power is measured not only in lives lost and families torn apart, but also in the erosion of democratic values, the suppression of human rights, and the diversion of resources from essential services to the insatiable maw of the military-industrial complex. The legacy of these warmongers is often one of instability, resentment, and a perpetuation of the cycle of violence. The world needs leaders who understand that true strength lies not in military might, but in diplomacy, cooperation, and a commitment to resolving conflict through peaceful means. We need leaders who prioritize the well-being of their people over the pursuit of power, who understand that war is always, ultimately, a failure. While the merchants of war and the architects of conflict may reap the most visible spoils of war, the seeds of discord they sow often take root in the fertile ground of poverty, inequality, and historical grievances. These underlying conditions, often ignored or exacerbated by corrupt and unaccountable governments, create fertile breeding grounds for extremism, resentment, and violence. In these environments where hope is a scarce commodity and opportunity is limited, the siren song of war with its promises of glory, purpose, and belonging can prove fatally alluring. The recruitment of child soldiers, a tragic testament to the depravity of war, is a stark example of how conflict preys on the most vulnerable members of society. These children, robbed of their childhoods, indoctrinated with hate, and forced to commit unspeakable acts, are both victims and perpetrators of a cycle of violence they did not create. Their stories, often untold and unheard, are a chilling reminder of the human cost of conflict and the urgent need to address the root causes of war. The fight for peace, therefore, is not just about ending wars, but about creating a more just and equitable world where poverty is eradicated, opportunity is shared, and all people have a voice in shaping their own destinies. It is about investing in education, healthcare, and sustainable development, and empowering communities to break the cycle of violence and build a future where conflict is not the norm, but a distant memory. The echoes of conflict, like ripples spreading outward from a stone cast into a still pond, can be felt long after the guns have fallen silent. They resonate in the lives of children forever scarred by the horrors they have witnessed, in the shattered landscape stripped bare by bombs and bullets, and in the collective psyche of a world struggling to come to terms with the enduring legacy of violence. The echoes of conflict reverberate long after the last bomb falls silent. They linger in the eyes of children who have witnessed unspeakable horrors, their innocence stolen by the brutal realities of war. The psychological scars, invisible to the naked eye, run deep, shaping their perceptions, their relationships, their very understanding of the world. The laughter of childhood, once a symphony of joy and spontaneity, may return, but it is often tinged with a haunting awareness of the fragility of peace. The physical remnants of war, the shattered buildings, the deserted streets, the silent playgrounds, stand as stark reminders of the destructive power of conflict. But it is the unseen wounds, the psychological trauma, the intergenerational cycles of violence that pose the most enduring challenges. Rebuilding shattered lives, restoring hope to those who have lost everything, is a monumental task. one that requires not just bricks and mortar but compassion, understanding, and a commitment to healing the wounds that run deeper than any physical injury. The world often focuses on the immediate aftermath of war, the humanitarian crises, the rebuilding efforts. But the true cost of conflict, the long shadow it casts over individuals, families, and entire societies, can only be measured in generations. The children who grow up in the shadow of war carry within them the potential to perpetuate the cycle of violence, or to break free from it and build a more peaceful future. The choices we make today, the support we offer, the lessons we learn, will determine which path they choose. Silence in the face of suffering is complicity. We cannot, we must not, turn away from the plight of children whose lives have been torn apart by war. Their stories, their struggles, their resilience must serve as a call to action, a reminder that we have a collective responsibility to protect the most vulnerable among us. We must demand accountability from those who profit from war, the merchants of death who fuel the flames of conflict with their deadly arsenals. We must challenge the narratives of hate and division that sow the seeds of discord, and instead promote dialogue, understanding, and empathy. We must invest in education, healthcare, and economic opportunity, creating a world where peace is not just an aspiration, but a lived reality for all children. The pursuit of peace is not a passive endeavor. It requires courage, commitment, and a willingness to challenge the status quo. It demands that we confront our own biases, our own complicity in systems that perpetuate injustice and inequality. It requires that we listen to the voices of those most affected by conflict, that we amplify their stories, and that we stand in solidarity with them in their struggle for a better future. Each one of us has a role to play in building a more peaceful world, whether it is through supporting organizations working on the front lines of conflict, advocating for policies that promote peace and diplomacy, or simply educating ourselves and others about the true cost of war. Our actions, no matter how small they may seem, can make a difference. Even amidst the ruins, even in the hearts of those who have witnessed unimaginable horrors, the seeds of hope endure. The human spirit, though battered and bruised, possesses an extraordinary capacity for resilience, for compassion, for forgiveness. It is in these glimmers of hope, in the acts of kindness, the gestures of solidarity, the unwavering belief in a better future, that we find the strength to carry on the fight for peace. We see it in the eyes of teachers who risk their lives to educate children in war zones, nurturing their minds, and keeping the flame of hope alive. We see it in the tireless efforts of doctors and nurses who work tirelessly to heal the physical and psychological wounds of war, offering comfort and care to those who have lost everything. We see it in the courage of former child soldiers who, having endured unimaginable horrors, dedicate their lives to building peace and advocating for the rights of others. These stories of hope, often overlooked in the headlines dominated by violence and despair, remind us that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit endures. They remind us that change is possible, that peace is not a utopian dream, but a goal worth striving for, and that we all have a role to play in creating a world where every child can grow up free from the fear of war. The echoes of conflict may reverberate for generations, but so too will the echoes of hope, of courage, of compassion. Let us choose to amplify these echoes, to let them drown out the sounds of war, and to build a future where peace is not just an aspiration, but a lasting legacy for all humankind.